Hi, everybody. My name is Dave Harden. I'll be your host this evening for the Einstein Retirement Workshops version of Social Security filing strategies. Welcome. I just need to do a little bit of an audio test before, just an audio check before we get started this evening. And I've got some fun trivia for you before the top of the hour. So hang with me. If you could if you can hear me, let me know that. That would be our audio check. So I've got people from Facebook, from YouTube, from X, from Instagram. If you're on from Facebook or YouTube, those are probably the biggest things I'm concerned about tonight. Let me just make sure that the audio is working. So if you could use the chat function and just type something in that you can hear me, anything. I'm in Pennsylvania this evening, so coming from you from the cold, wretched wasteland that it is right now. But I'd love to hear where you're from as well, what state you're in at least. But if you can hear me, just use the chat function and give me a thank you. There you go, Marilyn. Thank you. Hear you plus. I'm assuming that's good. All right. Thank you so much. Looks like you're from YouTube. Anybody from Facebook that can hear me? If you could give me a heads up, that would be awesome. So if you're on Facebook right now and you can hear me, I'd appreciate you giving me a heads up. Just give me a thumbs up in the meantime. I'd love to hear anybody chime in and let me know where you're from. Again, I'm from Pennsylvania this evening, so loud and clear, sounds great. There you go. Thank you, Teresa. That covers Facebook as well. All right. All right. We usually get people from all over the country, so I'm always interested to hear. But I'm going to start some trivia. You can play along by using thanks. Reedville, Virginia. Thanks, Ann. Appreciate it. So I'm going to ask our tech team to pull up the trivia. And there we go. Just to play along, all you have to do is give a quick answer. Thanks, Marilyn, from Nashville, Tennessee, one of my wife's favorite cities in the world. She would go to Nashville every year if she could. So to play along, all you have to do is just type in an answer. They're all simple A, B, C, or D's. So let's pull it up and get started with the very first question. Here we go. This is always fun. How do the first three Social Security numbers, how are they derived? So everybody has a 9-digit code, 3 plus 2 plus 4. Those first three numbers, is there a pattern to them? I don't know. Let's ask. Is it A, they come from the zip code of your birth city? B, the zip code of the issuing Social Security office? C, they're just random? Or D, they represent the state where you were born? What do you think? A, B, C, or D? Again, A is zip code of the birth city. B is zip code of the issuing Social Security office. C is random. D represents the state where you were born. What do you think? Again, to answer or participate, all you have to do is just type in a quick answer, A, B, C, or D. Interesting. All right. All right. There we go. Thanks, Jill. Thanks, Marilyn. All right. We've got some diverse answers so far. All right. All right. Ooh, thanks, Lori. So we've got some states, some D's, some A's. I don't see a random. I don't see a C. I don't see a B either. Interesting. All right. Let's take a peek and see where we're at here. What is the answer? Drum roll. It's B. It represents the issuing Social Security office's zip code. So isn't that a weird one? So when you first got your Social Security card, I mean, I got mine when I was 14 years old. I got a job first, and then my mother drove me to the Social Security office, and that Social Security office zip code was the first three numbers of my Social Security. Isn't that interesting? All right, next question. Well, I have more than 40,000 people claimed 078051120 as their social security number. It's pretty odd, right? 40,000 different people. A, that number was stolen and sold over 40,000 times. B, the Social Security machine literally printed and just issued that number over and over and over again, and nobody caught it, just 40,000 different people. And then C, it was a copy of a real Social Security card number that was included in a wallet that was sold at Woolworths to thousands and thousands of people. Howdy. Amolf, thanks so much. What is it? Let's throw in your numbers there. So throw in your guesses here. A, B, or C. Was it just a identity theft or stolen and sold? Was it the machine got malfunction, or was it a card that was included in a wallet at Woolworths? Laverne, California. I don't know. Paul, thanks. I don't know where Laverne is. I've done workshops all over California. I just don't know where Laverne is. Is it north or south? I see some C's. I see some C's. I see some A's. C's again. Interesting. We're on a roll here. There's a B. There's another B. There's another A. All right. We've got lots and lots of answers here. Let me pull it up. What do you think it is? Drum roll. It's C. This is one of those episodes of Strange But True. This was literally happened in the late 60s. It was a marketing executive at Woolworths that put together a package to sell this wallet, borrowed a Social Security card from his assistant, thinking he would send it to the printer and they would know not to use the number. Well, they used the number and it just went out. They sold hundreds and hundreds of thousands of these. And some people said, boy, that looks like a real number. And it was. All right. Under what circumstances can you get a new Social Security number issued to you? Is it A, religious or cultural issues with certain numbers? B, you're experiencing ongoing issues of identity theft? C, your number enables people to harass or endanger your life? Or D, all of the above? A, B, C, or D? We just have a couple more minutes, so I'd like to get a couple more of these in. If you're just joining us or if you just joined us recently, my name's Dave Hart. I'll be your host this evening. We're just doing some fun trivia before the top of the hour. Hi from Michigan. Marilyn looks like she has a daughter-in-law and son that live in Columbia, Tennessee. I'm assuming that's near Nashville. I see D, I see D, I see D, I see D, 30 miles outside of Los Angeles. I have a daughter going to Caltech. So that's right there. I get it. But unless you're south, I don't know. I said daughter. It's a granddaughter that's going to Caltech. I wish I was young enough to have a daughter going to Caltech. All right. So everybody is saying D. Let's take a peek. It's D. All right. I've got time for one last question. Again, to participate, all you have to do is type in your answer into the chat. What year was the first Social Security benefit paid? Now, to give you a little bit of a hint here, I don't know if it's a hint, but it'll help you with this. Social Security was signed into law in 1935. So was it A, 1936, 28.17? That would be the amount. B, 1937, $19.67. Or C, 1940 for $22.54. All right, A, B, or C. I see an A, I see an A. I see some more A's. There's a B. Interesting. There's another couple of A's. A seems to be the answer tonight. All right. We've got about 30 seconds left here. So if you're going to answer, this is the time to do it. I'll give you another 10 seconds before I reveal the answer. There's a B. There's a C. All right. Lots of thanks for your participation. Lots of fun. All right. Let's pull it up here. Is it A, B, or C? It's C. 1940. Now, I am not surprised so many people said A. It makes sense. It's intuitive. Here's the reason it's C. Social Security is self-funded. So when they signed it into law in 1935, they started collecting FICA, the money that they charge people who aren't receiving, but it took enough time to build up a fund to be able to start paying people without stopping. They didn't want to start paying them unless they knew they could continue to pay them. And so that's why the first benefit didn't happen until 1940. All right, it is the top of the hour. Thanks so much for participating. I'm going to ask our tech team to pull up our actual workshop. There we go. All right. Again, my name is Dave Harden. I am going to be your host this evening. Before I get started, let me just do a very small bit of housekeeping. I'm often asked, if I ask you right now, if you had a question, most of the most of the people would ask me a question, and that question would be, "How long does this take?" It's about an hour and 20 minutes. At the end of the workshop, I always do a Q&A, a question and answer. I'll do that this evening as well. Let me help you help us. If you've got a question and you know what it is that you want me to answer at the end of the workshop, don't wait. Type it in now. We'll queue them up so that when the workshop's over, we can just start asking and answering those questions right away. That way, we get through as many of those as possible. I try to get everyone in. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't ask me a question once we're done and you remember that you've got something and you want to do it, or I spur something on with the actual information in the workshop that gets you going on a question. That's fine, but it will help us tremendously if we have some questions queued up and we can get started right away. I don't want you to feel like you don't have time to ask that question. So do that now. We typically are always pleased, but not at all surprised. People stay. The last one of these I did, I think 90% of the people on here, we've got a big crowd tonight. 90% of the people on here stayed through the entire Q&A till the last question was answered. And I get it. You don't know what's going to be asked. So good deal. We're appreciative of that. All right, let's get started. All right, again, my name is Dave Harden. I am a registered financial consultant, an RFC. That's a designation from the International Association of Registered Financial Consultants. It's a designation for retirement planning and investment management. I also carry the NSSA designation, the National Social Security Advisor designation, and it is the only college accredited designation for Social Security and taxes in the country. It's a big deal. I'm also the author of the Social Security Workbook. So if you're expecting one of those at the end of the evening, we're going to get it to you. I wrote that book. I'm very proud of the work that we've done. I think it's probably maybe the ninth revision of it that we've done over the years. It's a very successful book, and we're proud of the work that it does and what it does for you. That being said, because of a license I have, I am a fiduciary advisor. I carry a Series 65 license from FINRA. It requires me to tell you that I am also the owner of a registered investment advisory firm. That firm is called City Center Advisors. We're very proud of the work that we do there. We've been incredibly blessed and incredibly successful. I enjoy owning that with my son. It is such a blessing to work with him. I'm so proud of what he has become and who he is and the work that he does. The truth is, I am near retirement. He is not, and he does way more than I do now. But we founded the firm together, and I'm very proud of the work that we do. That being said, I want to set you at ease a little. I'm not here to sell you investments this evening or recommend investments to you. That's not what this is about. We're going to work on and talk about Social Security and the implications that that has in your retirement, and that's it. That being said, I want to make sure that you're aware that I feel my obligation here to let you know about this. All right, let's get started. Okay, why are we here? Why is Social Security such a hot topic? Every single day, 10,000 baby boomers turn 65. Actually, this is the year that the most baby boomers are going to turn 65 every single day. And it's almost 11,000 a day this year. That's 70,000 per week, 280,000 per month. Last year, 3.64 million baby boomers reached age 65. That's going to continue for about the next 10 or 11 years. Now, it will be a huge amount after that. It just won't be quite that much. But there are a whole lot of us, and a whole lot of us are getting older. No surprise. Maybe more important, though, 65% of middle income Americans derive more than 50%. Half of their retirement income comes from the single source called Social Security. And since 1985, American corporations have eliminated more than 84,000 pensions. I don't mean 84,000 people lost their pension. That would be bad. I mean 84,000 corporations stopped issuing pensions. They just changed. Some of those corporations had more than 100,000 employees each. Huge change in how our country retires in the last 40 years. And maybe the most important statistic, 46.1% of Americans currently pass away with less than enough to fund their own funeral. They're broke. They're effectively broke. Now, I had a wonderful grandfather. He cared an awful lot about me. My mother divorced when I was 7, and he came to live with us shortly after, and he lived with us. Well, he lived with my mother until he died. Um, I was long gone by then, but he took my sister and I and realized that we didn't know a lot, particularly about money, and he realized that was a problem. And he really wanted us to understand it better. He had this saying, he would say, being old is hell, but being old and broke is the seventh level of hell. See, these people didn't die broke, they got broke before they died. And when you think about that, it's a pretty horrible circumstance to be in. You know, at, being 80 and not having money is not a good thing. I mean, we've all seen that at some point, but it's something we certainly don't want to be a part of. Now, you might ask yourself, do you insure your home? Well, any reasonable person does that. How about your car? Yeah, I live in Pennsylvania, as I said earlier. I have no choice. If I want to uh, drive a car, I have to insure it. And how about my health? Well, if you're on this workshop and you're thinking about Social Security and you qualify for Social Security, you've also qualified for Medicare. And guess what? At 65, you get it. And you've paid for it. You didn't pay a little for it, you paid a lot for it. But it is an insurance program, a government sponsored insurance program, nonetheless, but an insurance program. And so is Social Security, which insures your retirement. It's just the way it works. Nothing to be ashamed of. We paid for it. Maybe more importantly, what's the risk of outliving your income? This is census data from the US Census. It says if you're a single male age 65, you have a 50% chance you're living to 85. I don't think anybody's surprised at that. But you have a 25% chance of living to age 92. That might surprise some of you. When I first got in this business in the late 70s, and we started planning for clients, how long do you expect to live? The most common answer is, well, let's say 80. People who are super healthy might have said, well, 85. Nobody said 90. I mean, just didn't happen. But these days, you might be surprised at how many people are living way past 80. If you're a single female, census data says age 65, you have a 50% chance of living to 88, a 25% chance of living to 94. And if you're a couple, two people who care enough about each other and who are concerned for one another and want the best for them, you might be astonished at the numbers. If you're the male in that group, you have a 50% chance, one out of two chance you're living to 92. And if you're the female, you have a 50% chance of living to 97. That's amazing. Now, you might say, why so much longer? I mean, that's a big chunk, right? Well, I mean, it's double the odds if you're a single male to live to 92 than if you are married. Double the odds. That's crazy. Here's the reason. A few months ago, my wife made me go to the dermatologist. It's been almost 6 months. I go once a year, every year. My sister died in 2015 from skin cancer. They didn't catch it in time. They didn't really know what it was. We were those two kids that ran out. I hope in this whole audience tonight, I'm the only one who did this, but I know I'm not. We were the two kids that on the first day of summer, we ran out to get burned. We thought the best thing we could possibly do is get it over with. That's the only way we would get tanned. And so we did. And we did it every year. Nowadays, I avoid the sun like a plague sometimes. And if I think we would have at best put what SPF 15. Now my wife carries 50 and she thinks that's the cheap stuff. We're just super careful because of my sister. But it turns out, by the way, that mole was absolutely nothing. It was a mole. But that kind of concern for one another makes a difference in how long you actually live. And that's why this is so important. This is Ethel Carterham. She's from England. She is so close to being 116. And she's a jolly old soul. There has been a line of succession 116-year-olds, 119-year-olds, 116-year-olds. That in 2018, it was a woman from Jamaica who was 122. People are living longer and longer and longer. By the way, if you'd have looked at the list 15 years ago of the list of the oldest living people in the world, there were barely any Americans on it. I think one or two. Now, the list now is chock full of Americans. Americans are living longer and longer. That's you and me, but really, it's our parents that are living much longer than we expected them to. Now, not all of us. My parents are gone, but they lived a good while. But I think you have to count this in your process when you're thinking about how long and when you're going to take things like Social Security. Here's what our focus is today. This is what we're going to drill down on. Benefit basics, how they work, strategies for married couples, options for divorced individuals, options for widows and widowers. If you're single, don't worry. Social Security is actually written for the single person. These are the variations. But if you're worried, hey, what am I going to learn tonight? You see that word taxes? Boy, do we have to drill in on this tonight. Everybody here is, I think, going to be surprised at how serious the problem is with taxes and Social Security. And I know some of you are thinking, hey, didn't that stop? Didn't they stop taxing Social Security? What is it? The one big beautiful bill, the OBBB? No. They instead gave a temporary $6,000 deduction to you, another $6,000 if you're married to your spouse, so a total of $12,000. But that happened only for last year. this year and next year, and then it disappears. Social Security still is fully taxable, and you're going to be surprised at how serious the problem is with it. And then coordinating benefits. Okay, here we go. Basics of Social Security. How do you qualify? You get Social Security by paying into the system over time. You had to work at a Social Security covered job, a place where you paid in through FICA and your employer matched that. If you were self employed, you've already known the bad news for a long time. You paid both ends of that with zero discounts. They take the highest 35 years of your earned wage income to calculate your Social Security benefit. What do I mean? Not the first 35 years you worked, not the last, not the middle, individual years. It could be the first year, it could be the third year, it could be the 10th year, doesn't matter. The highest 35. So if you worked 50, they're going to take everyone, prorate them, and there's a formula. You'll find that in the book. I'm going to give that to you tonight to figure out what the actual proration is. But after they prorate them, they add them all together and they divide by 35 to get your average wage income that you pay Social Security tax on, and that's what determines how much you get. Why do I bring this up? Because look, if you don't have 35 years, you might be surprised at how they deal with this. Let's say you have 34. They take all 34, they prorate them, they add them all together, they get a lump sum, and then they divide by 35, not 34. You have 30, they add them all together, they divide by 35. You have 20, add them all together, still divide by 35. If you know much about math and division problems, you start adding zeros to a division problem, you're going to get a much lower average. Massively average. Some people come to me wanting to retire early and they don't realize they don't have 35 full years. They didn't earn it yet. And making, a 1 or 2 year, 3 year difference can make a huge difference in your actual benefit that you get for the rest of your life. You need 40 credits, 10 years of work history, but those 10 years can be 1 quarter here, 1 quarter there. It doesn't have to be in a row. It doesn't even have to be inside of 1 year. You can only earn 4 credits in a year. A quarter is the calendar quarter, so January, February, March, April, May, June, and so on. Once you have those 40 credits, 40 quarters equals 10 years, you have earned a Social Security benefit. Nothing can take that away. But if you don't have those 40 credits, you do not have a benefit. Even though you've paid into it for 39 credits, they don't refund that money to you. You just don't get the benefit. Now, I said nothing can take it away. Are there any exclusions? There used to be. And I talk about this because so many people ask about the Social Security Fairness Act last year. So here it is. The Social Security Fairness Act of 2025 changed Social Security in terms of what they can take away from you. Turns out Congress passed this law that included 2 things, the GPO and the WP, that if you were a government worker, you worked for the military, you were a railroad employee with at least 10 years of service and earned a pension, you worked for a state or local government, a county, a city, a school district, where you paid in to a pension program, but not to Social Security. They opted out of that in favor of their own pension. Well, no big deal, right? You didn't pay in, so you shouldn't worry about it. But look, this happens a lot. My wife was a teacher, and she knows lots of teachers, and a lot of them didn't work 50 years as teachers. They worked 25 or 30, and they retired. They have a pension. Oftentimes, that pension doesn't start until they retire or later on. Sometimes it does. But they often go back to work outside of teaching into the private sector. And all of a sudden, they start earning those quarterly credits. And it doesn't take very long, 10 years. they've got a pension, but they've also earned a Social Security income as well. Here's the problem. The, the WEP, the windfall elimination provision that Congress passed decades ago, said because they didn't have 31 years of work history, very arbitrary number, right? Because they didn't have that 31 years, they would reduce, wouldn't touch their pension, but they would reduce the amount they got from Social Security. How is that fair? Well, it wasn't, because they paid for it and their employer paid for it. It was a paid for benefit, but Congress saw a way of doing it and they did it, and it lasted for decades. But they finally set it right last year and said, we won't do this anymore. Now, the GPO, the government pension offset, or we like to call it the grumpy partner offset, it affected things a little differently. It would have applied to you. Let's say you work for the government. Let's say I work for the government for 40 years. I have a wonderful pension, marvelous pension. My spouse didn't. Like my spouse, she was a teacher. She worked for several years, and then we started having kids, and she did not want to go back to work right away. And then we had more kids, and she didn't want to go back to work, and then we had more. But eventually, the youngest one got to a point where she was confident that she was going to be okay, and she wanted to go back to work. So she did. But when she retired, she didn't have 31 years, not even close. But she had, and she didn't really have a big pension. But remember, I'm working for the federal government. I got this wonderful pension. She has more than 10 years, so she's earned Social Security. I might have thought to myself, if something happens to me, she'll get my pension. She'll keep her Social Security. She'll be fine. But the GPO said, hey, when you inherit that pension, you get the pension, but we are, because you don't have 31 years, we're going to reduce your Social Security. And by the way, we might eliminate it altogether if you don't have many years. Now, that was incredibly unfair, but the government saw fit to do it. Last year, January 5th, signed into law is a bill that said, Social Security Fairness Act, that said, this won't happen anymore. And it's gone. All right. How does Social Security work? You put in 6.2% of your income for up to a maximum income of 100 this year, 184,500. This number changes every year. It's prorated, and it will continue to go up until it reaches $1 million a year. I'm sure by that time they'll raise it again, but that happens in the 2055 or something like that. Well, probably long after I'm gone. But it will be, it will eventually stop. But it's gone up considerably just in the last 10 years ago. That was about $114,000 a year. So it's gone up significantly. Now, that 6.2 is matched by your employer by another 6.2% for a total of 12.4%. Now, 12.5%, just 0.1% more, it would be 1/8 of your paycheck. I want you to think about that. 1/8 of every single dollar you've ever made. Even when I was working at Woolworth, making $1.05 an hour in the 70s, every single dollar of that, 1/8 of it has gone into an account for Social Security. It's a huge amount of money. Business Insider magazine did a study, I don't know, 5 years ago. They said a husband and wife, average $50,000 a year income, had contributed over their lifetime to Social Security and Medicare $742,000. That's a massive amount of money. Yeah, some of you are, hey, can I just get that back? Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah, it doesn't work that way. All right. Today's contributions cover today's benefits. Basically, Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system. What do I mean? Well, the money that we contribute this month in February is paid out in March. to the people who are receiving Social Security. It has been that way since its inception in 1935. The people that were putting in then were paying for the people who had never put a nickel in because they were already over 65 or retired before Social Security actually started collecting. But that group that started collecting was very small. That here's one of the reasons. Social Security's original plan was that you got a benefit, a full retirement age benefit at 65. That you couldn't even file at 62. That didn't happen until the mid 60s. So you had to wait till 65. Guess what the average lifespan was? 63. You had overlived your lifespan to begin with. This was set up for people who weren't expecting to live that long, that weren't prepared for it. That's what this was set up for. So when we paid in, when that generation was paying in, they were paying to cover a much smaller generation. And then that next generation, our parents, the greatest generation, right? They were much smaller than baby boomers by a million miles. At some point in, I think it was the 70s, there were something like 40 people paying in for every single person receiving a benefit. Here's the problem. 77 million baby boomers. Anybody know how many millennials there are? 81 million. There's more of them than there are of us, but not by much. That's about a 1-to-1 ratio. What in the world is going to happen? This makes us worry about a thing called solvency. Is Social Security okay? Are they going to be around? Let me give you my take on this. Look, I am going to give you exactly, I've done a ton of research. I've done a lot of reading about this. I want to sort of give you a pat on the back and say it's not as bad as everybody is telling you. First off, let me talk about 1983 because it was a huge year for Social Security and baby boomers. 83 was the year, first off, the first year since that they actually projected that we were going to be in the red at some point in the future. It was a huge deal for Social Security. And Congress acted. Now, it's about the last time they acted on Social Security, but they acted, and they acted in a big way. It's the year that you got the letter. Now, if you're really good at memory, you'll remember sometime in August. That's when I got it, and my wife got it. You got a letter from Social Security in 1983. Now, I was way too young to get anything from Social Security, but I did. So what was the letter? Excuse me one second. It was a letter that said, hey, since its inception, Social Security has always been full retirement age based at age 65. But if you're born after 1943 through 1954, it's no longer 65, it's going to be 66. We're taking a year away from you. And if you're born after 1954, for every 2 months, add another, or for every year, add another 2 months. So you're born in 1955, it's 66 and 2 months, 56, 66 and 4 months, and so on until you get to birth year 1960, where it would be 66 and 12 months, or 67. And then for everybody born 1960 or later, their full retirement age is now 67. Now, that letter it floored me at first. And I was so concerned about it that I remember the next day at work, I was having a conversation with somebody at the coffee urn and having a cup of coffee and talking about it. And I was concerned not about is Social Security going broke. I was concerned about how many more letters am I going to get that just keep pushing that age from 67 to 69 to 70 to 75 eventually. I mean, are they just going to take it all away? And I got scolded by somebody who was about 10 feet away from us, overhearing our conversation. I might have been a little too loud because I was definitely concerned about this. And they said something to me that I had never heard, and I've heard a lot since. Why are you guys worried about Social Security? It's not even going to be there when you retire. You ever heard that? Well, I sure have. Here's the thing, they were dead wrong. Not only have I never gotten another letter, they have never changed that. It's still here. Now, it's fully funded through 2035. That's 9 years. That's not a lot, but it's been fully 2 years ago. It was fully funded to 2033. It got better. Here's the problem: Congress just isn't doing anything about it. But I want you. Let me first off set you a little bit at ease. It doesn't go broke in 2035. It's still funded after that, 83 cents on every dollar. Social Security has enough money to pay out 83 cents of every dollar they owe without doing anything else. This is not a we're going broke, what do we do? This is, hey, we need some more income. How do we fix the 17-cent problem? It's surprisingly not that hard to fix. Couple of things that they could do: four basic proposals, increase the minimum retirement age. By the way, it's too late for this to fix it. Might have helped if they'd have done this 20 years ago. It will help some and probably help your kids more than it will help us. But if they raised it from 62 to 64 or 5, it would help some. Increase the full retirement age. This helps a little more. Instead of your full retirement age being 66 or 67, raise it to 70 or 72. That helps too. But it doesn't fix the problem. Here's the one that fixed the problem: raise the payroll tax. That 6.2% that you pay in, the 6.2 that they match. OMB did a thing 5 years ago, said if they'd raised it 1%, half a percent to you, half a percent to the employer, it would have fixed this for the next 70 years. They didn't do it. Now, to fix it now, it would have to be raised more than 1%. But I don't care what it is. They got to do something, right? It is not an insurmountable problem. They just have to fix it. The longer they wait, the worse it is. And then reduce benefits. Here's the thing about that, though. It's the one thing they can't do. Now, I know it's the thing that you hear they're going to do all the time because you get manipulated by the media and by the banks and by the finance companies, all who want look, if JP Morgan, I'm just pulling them out of the air. I don't know anything about JP Morgan. But if JP Morgan Chase wants the government to privatize part of Social Security so they get trillions and trillions of extra dollars to manage, the best thing they could do is scare the crap out of us. You have to wonder why we're being told that. Here's the thing. If they actually reduced benefits, it would be a breach in fiduciary. It would be that the full faith and credit of the United States government would be wasted. It would kill our country. Our bond ratings would go in the toilet. Everything about what makes the United States the biggest and best financial country in the world would disappear overnight. And they know it. They absolutely know it. They cannot do it. By the way, everybody said, well, it's an entitlement program. We just have to, if you pay into Social Security for 5 years, you become crippled and you receive disability benefits for the rest of your life, you are taking advantage of an entitlement program. But when you pay into Social Security for a benefit that you receive when you retire, and you did it for 40 years, that ain't no entitlement. You paid for it, and you paid dearly for it. Not to pay you would be It's unconscionable. It can't happen. Let me tell you the other reason. I was at a conference. It's been late April, early May of last year. 200 advisors. It was an invitation only event in Coronado Bay, California. I was grateful to be invited. Some of the people there are people that I have listened to and admired my entire career. One of the speakers is somebody that I wouldn't call him a close friend, but he's somebody that I listen to and talk to on a regular basis that I admire. They're just tremendous. Um, some of the people that were teaching some of the out meetings, the small, well, I say small, 100 people meetings that they breakout sessions are that were on several different topics, were some of the smartest people I know. One of those meetings was on Social Security, and I had to go. This is what I talk about all the time. So I went, and it was fascinating. I'm sitting about 4 rows back in the middle. They've got 4 seats up. I see the moderator walk in, and they introduce these 4 panelists, the first of which I know. I recognize he's a former director of the Social Security Administration. It's a massive job. You don't get that job without being somebody really, really pretty powerful. Don't know the next 2 guys. The fourth person is another former director of the Social Security Administration, 2 from different parties. I didn't know him, but I knew the name, but I'd never seen him or heard him before. And the panel was great. They had an incredible conference, at the end of which they did a Q&A, just like I'm going to do this evening. And you didn't have to wonder what the absolute first question was going to be. Out of these 100 advisors sitting in this room, everyone had the same question on their mind. What about solvency? What's going to happen? Here's what they both said. Don't worry about it. Not going anywhere. Social Security is not going to not pay people. Not possible. Well, how are they going to do it? How are they going to get the money? Don't know, but they will get it. And then after being pressed several times, one of them said, I want to remind you that 4 years ago, out of the thin air, our government funded $4.5 trillion in the middle of COVID for a stimulus program, $4.5 trillion at the time, an amount equal to our entire government budget, out of thin air, for something that they weren't sure was going to work and that they had no obligation to do. But they did it. They have an obligation here, and they will absolutely figure out a way. Will they borrow it? I don't know. Maybe will they? Well, it doesn't matter. They will do it because they can't not do it. And then the other one said this: Social Security is so set in its way, so regimented. They have a systematic approach to how they pay people, and they never pay people less one year than they did the year before, ever. So if your Social Security goes up by $100, that would be a nice increase, right? $100. But your Medicare premium, for some reason, goes up $120. They don't deduct the Medicare premium and pay you $20 less than you got last year. They cut the premium for Medicare by $20 so you don't get less than you got last year, because it is inconceivable in the eyes of Social Security that they would pay you less. It just doesn't happen. All right. You get your full retirement age benefit, your FRA, at 66 or 67, depending on when you were born. If you take it early as 62, you get less. You get 75%. If you delay, you get these DRCs, delayed retirement credits. For every year you delay, you get 8%. You actually get every month 2/3 of 1%. But it adds up to 8% per year. 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. It's 132%. It is not that is they're not compounded, but they are stackable. And the difference between taking it at 62 and getting 75% and taking it at 70 and getting 132% is a total of 177% more. It's like getting your full retirement age benefit plus an age 62 benefit on top of it. You can't ignore that. Now, there are reasons to take it early, but boy, so many people do that shouldn't. 3 distinct Social Security benefits: the retired worker benefit, your benefit, my benefit, based entirely on our own earnings record, what we put in. A spousal benefit has nothing to do with that. My spouse could have never worked a day in her life. And because she's married to me and I qualify for the Social Security benefit, she's entitled to a spousal benefit without ever even contributing a dime because I contributed. Widower, or survivor benefits provide a surviving spousal benefit after the worker's death. Nothing to do with the survivor's contributions, all to do with the deceased worker's contributions. All right, Bipartisan Budget Act of 2015 changed a couple of things. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because it doesn't really apply except for those of us born after January 2nd, 1954. This act changed. Look, if you'd have come to me in 2014 or even part of 2015, and you just said, when should I file? I'd have said file at 62, but then immediately suspend your benefit. Why would I do that? Because your spouse, if you're married, your spouse could immediately go in and file what was called a restricted application for only your spousal benefit. In other words, your benefit's still growing all the way to full retirement age, all the way to 70. It's getting those DRCs, delayed retirement credits, but your spouse can collect half of your benefit all the way to their full retirement age or all the way to 70 and then switch. It was a great way to get a bunch of extra income while you were waiting. Didn't change it. Now, this only applied to married couples and divorced spouses. It didn't apply if you're single or if you were widowed or you were a widow or widower. Now, I'm going to skip the first two groups here because if you're born prior to May 1st, 1950, you're almost 76 years old. You should file. Same thing. If you were born after May 1st, 1950, before January 2nd, 54, you're at least 72 years old. You should have filed. But if you're born after 1954, after January 2nd, 54, this applies to you. Now, you can't do that restricted application. That's not why I'm talking about this. I'm talking about this, but for this group born after January 2nd, 54, you and me, when they changed this law in 2015, they added a thing called deemed filing. And deemed filing automatically triggers benefits permanently. How do I put this? When you go in and file, you're going to sit down. Most of us don't go in anymore. We have a Zoom call or a phone call, and the agent will talk to you. The counsel will talk to you, and they'll ask you a bunch of questions, verify you are who you are, to figure out when you want to take the benefit, and then they will go. No matter what you tell them about the benefit you want to receive, they'll go to the computer and determine what the benefit is that you get based on it being the most that's available on that day. And then they'll give you that one whether you want it or not. And then you're done. Let me emphasize that again. And then you are done. You can't change it. You can't go back. You can't say, I don't want this anymore. I am done. Because of the permanency of that decision, you have got to make sure that the filing decision is made correctly. And most of us walk into Social Security or have that meeting without any clue about what it should be. We're asking Social Security to make that decision for us. And I will tell you, you're putting a huge, huge, important question on somebody that doesn't, they're not going to give you advice. They don't have your best interest at heart. They will answer your questions directly if you ask them, but they won't tell you that's the wrong question. They will not do that. They can't. They're trained not to. You have to know for this group, timing strategies matter, and you've got to be prepared ahead of time. All right, married couples, if you're thinking about spousal benefits, to qualify, you must have been married now for at least 1 full year. Less than a year, you don't have benefits. The primary worker must have filed. They must be receiving benefits. Generally, you must not qualify for a benefit on your own that is equal to or greater than one half of your primary worker's PIA. PIA is primary insurance amount. It's the calculation that gets us to your full retirement age benefit. Now, here's the thing. If I'm a spouse and I go in to get a benefit and my benefit is $1 more than the spousal benefit that I'm entitled to, I don't get it. I get mine and I can't take it. Period. Here's an example. John's primary insurance amount at full retirement age is $2,000. Jane, his spouse, would be eligible for one half at her full retirement age. She would get one half of that, $1,000. Pretty simple, right? Well, again, your full retirement age, either 66 or 67 or some months in between. At the full retirement age, you get 100% of your benefit. If you file early, you get less. At 62, you would get the least amount. You would get 75%. But if you file your spousal benefit early, you get penalized more. Not 75%, but 70%. Let me just do the math. John's benefit is $2,000. Jane at her full retirement age is 50% of that, $1,000. But if she wants that at 62, she gets 70%. 70% of 50%, or $700. Okay. Now, these DRCs I've talked about, delayed retirement credits for delaying, you get 8% plus 8% plus 8% plus 8%. Huge amount of extra benefit. But if you delay taking a spousal benefit, you get nada, nothing. You get the benefit that you would have gotten at your full retirement age, your FRA. You don't get any DRCs. I cannot tell you how many people in my career I've seen delay taking their spousal, thinking that it's growing with those 8% benefits after they reach their FRA. And worse, when they realize their mistake, because most people get a statement where they look at their thing and they realize it didn't go up. So they call Social Security. Oh, no, it doesn't go up. Well, can I go back and file at my original age then? No. I can do that with my own benefit. My benefit, I can go back sometimes a year, always 6 months, and they'll just give me a lump sum and then start my benefit. On a spousal benefit, I can only file it forward, never backwards. All right. Survivor benefits. At the death of the first spouse, a surviving spouse can receive a maximum of either his or her own benefit, right? No surprise there. The benefit of the deceased, so if they want the benefit of the deceased, they can take that instead. Or 82.5% of the PI of the deceased if the deceased filed early. So, look, one of the reasons I get so upset about the misinformation about solvency is it is driving baby boomers to file early. It's scaring us. Last 2 years, 40% of baby boomers took their benefit at the earliest possible time, 62. Here's the problem. When we, by the way, when I say it's influencing this bad news or this information about solvency that people are spreading about how Social Security is going broke or they're going to reduce your benefits, it has influenced people to say, well, if it's going to go broke, I want to file before it does. I want to get something before that happens. Here's the problem. Let's say you're married and you file at 62, and then something happens, you're in a car accident, you die, and your spouse inherits your benefit because it was bigger, they've inherited a much smaller benefit, and they're stuck with that for the rest of their lives. The government, because this has happened so much, 2 out of every 5 people are doing this, they've bumped that from 75% to 82.5. Not a lot, but I guess I should be grateful for something, right? All right, most common mistakes. Higher wage earners file early and shortchange survivor benefits happens every single day, thousands of times a day. And then both delay past full retirement age. Nobody claims that spousal benefit, just throwing money back into the Social Security coffers. All right, divorced individuals. To qualify for divorced spouse benefits, you must have been married for 10 full years. Wait for it, in a row, and to the same person. No stopsies and starties, no switching partners in the middle of the dance. 10 years to the same person, period. And you can't currently be married. If you're divorced and you remarry, even though you had a 10-year marriage, those benefits disappear. You now, after 1 year of marriage, have spousal benefits from your current spouse. Don't have the old benefits anymore. Doesn't matter whether they were better or not, they have gone away. Now, here's the exception to that. If you're you remarry, but that spouse passes away, the 10-year-old marriage benefits magically reappear for you, and you have some options. What if you redivorce? Yeah, you divorce, then if you had a second 10-year marriage, then those are available to you, but so are the other ones, not at the same time, but you have some options. Same benefit amounts and reductions apply for early claiming as you do for regular spousal benefits. There's one difference between spousal benefits and divorce spouse benefits. And it's this right here. It's called independently entitled. And it's a big difference. I've been married 49 years. My wife, I have not filed. I'm waiting until 70. My wife is collecting her own benefit. She would get much more if she could take the spousal benefit that she's due. But until I take mine, she can't get it. But if we had been divorced for 2 years, that rule doesn't apply. She could take it whether I filed or not. That is the only difference between the two. All right, Bipartisan Budget Act for divorced individuals, it's the same. Look, no difference here whatsoever. If you're born prior to May 1st, 1950, or you're born prior to January 2nd, 54, these are all way past due and you can't do anything. And I'd be surprised if anybody is on here. But if you're born after January 2nd, 54, the restricted application for spousal is simply no longer available. But if you're older than your ex-spouse and you're not currently married, you can claim your own benefit as early as 62, switch to a larger divorce spouse benefit when your ex-spouse reaches full retirement age. This can be done, listen to this can be done more than once if you have multiple qualifying ex-spouses. Now, what do I mean by that? Social Security is so generous here. They will let you take the smallest benefit first, allowing the larger benefit to grow before you take it, and then switch when it's best for you. Pretty interesting. Common questions we get from those who are divorced. Do divorce benefits affect a current spouse or other dependents? No. Spousal benefits. So if your ex-spouse remarried and has a current spouse and kids, their benefits are untouched if you're bending your benefit. It doesn't affect them at all. Now, the most common question we get, are they notified? Will they know if I'm claiming benefits on them? And the answer is no. Just like, and by the way, Social Security can't tell them, but they wouldn't tell them. There's no reason, it doesn't affect them. But just like, I guess it's important to know, just like HIPAA prevents your doctor from sharing your medical information with somebody without your written permission, Social Security can't share your information either. Here's the exception. If you can prove that you had a 10-year marriage license, and a final divorce decree with at least a 10-year span, then they are bound to give you the necessary information about your spouse's benefits to know whether or not you qualify and what they would be. Now, they're not going to give you all their information, but they'll give you whatever you need to be able to get your own benefit, period. I will also tell you that I've had many clients go into Social Security and ask for that help and be told no. Ask for a supervisor. They are and will help you. Okay. Widows and widowers. To qualify for widow benefits, you must be at least 60 years old. And you must have remained unmarried. So if your spouse died at age 40 and you marry for a weekend, you no longer have those benefits if you married before your 60th birthday. But if you married the day after your 60th birthday, guess what? You, even though you're married, are entitled to these benefits. By the way, 60 is the earliest retirement benefit available in Social Security. Nobody else can get benefits prior to age 62. And then you had to be married for at least 9 months prior to the death of your spouse. There's a couple exceptions, but they're very small. Member of the Armed Service of the United States that was killed in line of duty. Member of the federal or local law enforcement killed in line of duty. Full-time fireman killed in line of duty. That's it. Everything else, 9 months at least, or no benefits. All right, I'm going to do a quick case study on a widow client example. I want you to see this. I'm going to make it very simple. I want you to see this because I want you to understand how important filing correctly is and having a plan before you file. So John, never elected, dies at age 64. Benefit at his full retirement age would have been $2,150. Jane, 5 years younger, so she's age 59 when John dies. She remains unmarried until 60, because if she didn't, she doesn't qualify, but she did. Jane's estimated benefit on her own. Now, this isn't the survivor benefit. This is her own benefit, which she can't get until 62, is $1,197 at 62. Let's take a look. I call the first option file without thinking, because it's what most of us do. We walk into Social Security, we have that meeting, Zoom or on the phone, and basically we ask the question. In fact, Social Security tells us the most common question people ask is, how much can I get? What's the most I can get? So she asked that question. They say, well, the only benefit that you can get right now is the survivor benefit at age 60. You don't even qualify for the other one until 62. But it's not $2,150. You're taking it at 60. It's discounted. It's now $1,537 a month. We're going to do very simple math here. We're going to not add cost of living or anything else, just simple math. We're going to say she lives to 85, 25 more years, 300 months. 1,537 times 300 is $461,100. Not bad. Strategy 1, work 2 more years. Work until you get your own benefit. Why? Well, if you let that larger benefit, the survivor benefit, max out at full retirement age, you get $2,150. So use your own benefit, or work 2 more years. Maybe you're making $40,000, $50,000. Then take it at 62. That $1,197 will pay you that till 66, and then 67 will start paying you the $2,150. Look at the difference here. It's almost $80,000 more. not counting the 40 or 50,000 you're making for working 2 more years. It's a lot of money. Most people say strategy two is better. Says take that age 60 benefit, the survivor benefit. I don't want to work 2 more years. I want to retire now. I need the money. See, we start paying you 1537, but remember that 1197, you don't get it until 62, but that's less, so you wouldn't take it then, but it's still your benefit. It's still accumulating. And by the time you max out at full retirement age, and then you start adding DRCs because that gets delayed retirement credits too, at 70, that maxes out at $2,108. That's a lot more than 1537. Switch. By doing that, you get almost $103,000 more, and you started taking your benefit at age 60. It's a huge difference. Look, I don't know how much money you have, but I don't know anybody that can walk away from $100,000 in retirement. I don't care how much money you have. Those are mistakes that we never recover from. You just can't do it. You got to have a plan. All right, if you decide to take your benefit, your Social Security benefit, at age 62, 63, 64, 65, for some of you it's 66, before your full retirement age, and you make more than $24,480 in a year, then for every $2 over that, they're going to reduce your Social Security benefit by $1. Let me put this in simpler terms. You've got a $2,000 Social Security benefit. That's $24,000 in a year, but you made $58,000 when you're 63. At the end of the year, you're going to file your taxes. In April, sometime in July, you're going to get a letter from Social Security that says, hey, you made too much money, and we applied the formula, and you owe every dime of that $24,000 back with interest. This is not a good way to start retirement. It is a horrible way to start retirement. And you've got to know this beforehand. I can't tell you how many people start taking their benefit while they're still working, thinking, oh, well, this will give me some extra money. I'll prep for retirement. This will help my savings. Just can't do that without knowing the consequences. In the year that you turn full retirement age, if you have an early birthday or a late birthday, if you have an early birthday, it's probably not a problem. But in the year that you turn full retirement age, if you have income that exceeds $65,160 before your full retirement age birthday, then for every $3 over that number, they're going to reduce your Social Security by $1. If your birthday is in October, November, December, this is probably not a problem. Or it could be a problem because you've earned that money prior to it. If you're taking, a lot of people start taking their benefit. Hey, I'm turning 67 this year. I'm turning 66 this year. They start taking their benefit in January. If you've done that, you might be in for a big surprise. Now, if your birthday's in February, it's probably not going to be a problem. Unless you're making oodles and oodles of money, you're probably not going to make $65,161 by February. But maybe you will. If you are, you need to pay attention to this. All right. After you reach your FRA, your full retirement age, you can earn $1 bazillion. There's no reduction in your benefit. Doesn't matter how much you make, they're not going to take any of it away. But if you make a lot of money, well, even not that much money, you are going to have to deal with taxes. Now, I don't know how many of you knew that Social Security was taxable before this evening. When I ask people, usually about half don't know. So I'm not surprised at that. I wouldn't be embarrassed by it. But here's the thing, you probably don't know exactly how that's going to affect you. I'm going to do my best to explain it to you this evening because it's a big, big deal. First off, Social Security was never supposed to be taxable. When it was signed into law in 1935, it was explicitly designed to be a tax free benefit. Why? Because you paid taxes on it already. When you think about this, when you put money into your FICO account, do you pay tax on that? You sure do. You don't get a deduction for it. You don't not pay tax on it. You pay tax on it. You have your entire life. Why? Because when it was set up, it was designed to be taxable going in, but tax free going out. But remember, I told you baby boomers got targeted in 1983, and they really targeted us. One was changing our full retirement age. The other one is this. This law was put into place by Congress at the exact same time in 1983. They just didn't send us a letter telling us that was going to happen. It just did. I'm going to explain why this is such a big deal. Because, look, people tell me all the time, well, it's double taxation. Yeah. But look, they can write a law that says murder is free. I don't know. They can change the law to say anything. That's exactly what they've done here. And there's nothing we can do about it except be aware and prepare to try and mitigate this as much as possible before it kicks you. This is super complex too. If you want to know, this is, I think, 2,752 pages in Social Security law. 83 of them are about taxes. It's not simple. By the way, this is publication 915. You go to irs.com/forms 915. This will give you the 33-page document and worksheet that you need to figure out how to pay your taxes. Okay. This chart was created by Congress in 1983. This is called provisional income, and it's the mechanism used to determine how much tax you pay on your Social Security. I'm going to explain this to you in a second. You might want to write down provisional income, but I'm going to try and tell you, well, let me tell you what's included in provisional income so you understand the gravity of how this works. Well, let me explain the provisional income first, and then I'll explain what's in it. If you're single, male or female, doesn't matter, a single person receiving Social Security, and you earn $25,000 of provisional income, ain't much. 50% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay, not the first dollar of tax, the last dollar rate of tax. If you earn $34,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. By the way, there's in that 83 pages of Social Security tax law, there's this wonderful line. Sometimes late at night, I look it up just to get a laugh. It says, we never tax 15% of your Social Security. I just think that's hilarious that they thought that was something that they should write in there. If you're a married couple, doesn't matter how you're filing, jointly, separately, doesn't matter. Head of household, could be anything. Combined income is $32,000 of provisional income. 50% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. If you earn $44,000 of provisional income, 85% of your Social Security is fully taxable at the highest marginal tax rate you pay. Now, here's why this is upsetting. I said that we were targeted, baby boomers were targeted. If your grandparents in 1983 had $44,000 of provisional income, they were amongst the 2% of the highest income earners in retirement in our entire country. They were rich. Not so much today. And if this, by the way, I said they set this up and they targeted us. Here's one of the ways they targeted us. This was put into law in 83, and never has there ever been a mechanism to prorate this. Not once. If, in fact, it was prorated just at the same rate that your Social Security is prorated, adjusted for cost of living, the 44,000 this year would be 142,000. And I swear to you, if it was 142,000, I wouldn't be having this conversation. I would go, yeah, okay, but it isn't. Let me tell you what's in provisional income. All your W-2 income, all your gross income, every bit of it, all your pensions. Doesn't matter what kind of pension. I don't care if it's a post office pension. I don't care if it's a government pension, military pension, disability pension. It doesn't matter what it is. Every one of them counts 100%. All wages, all interest income, all tax exempt interest income. So let's say you bought a bunch of muni bonds thinking I'm going to maneuver this so I don't pay tax in retirement. No problem. But that interest income counts as provisional income, even though it's not federally taxed. All 1099 income, all casual labor income, all sales income, maybe sell real estate. I don't care what it is. 100% of that counts as provisional income. All real estate income. Listen to this. Maybe you're somebody who thinks, hey, I figured this out. I've got a great way to save on taxes in retirement. I use rental income as a mechanism for my income. I get all sorts of depreciation. I might, I get real benefits here. Guess what? All that Schedule E rental income counts without depreciation. 100% counts as provisional income. All business income. Maybe you own part of a business, a small business, an LLC, a subchapter S corporation. You get a income from that. 100% of that counts. Maybe you get K1 income. Oftentimes, K1 income isn't taxable. Even if it is taxable, you may not have gotten the income. They could have given you a $25,000 K1 that they actually kept the money because next year they're hiring an employee or they're expanding or they're doing a makeover on your company somehow, and they needed that money to do it. You don't get it, but guess what? It counts as provisional income, even though you didn't see a dime of it. Maybe you're like my son and daughter-in-law who overpay taxes. They take the least amount of deductions they can because they know next year they'll get a huge tax return. I've seen them spend that on a roof. I've seen them do home improvements. I've seen them take big vacations. I've seen them buy a car. They've done all sorts of things with it. But in the year that they receive that, I think it's a zero interest loan they're giving to the government. It doesn't make sense to me. But if you have trouble savings, maybe you've done this, that tax refund in the year that you receive counts as provisional income. All right, here's the interesting ones. Pay attention to these. Do you have an IRA, a 401k, a 403b, a 457, a SEP, a SERP, a SLRP? I don't care what you have. If it's a tax deferred mechanism, an account that you put money into tax without tax, you didn't pay tax on it, it grew tax deferred. And then when you take it out, it's taxable. 100% of that counts as provisional income. Now, some of you are going, wait a minute, Dave. My advisor told me that I should pour as much money into an IRA as I can because it's growing tax deferred. And when I take it out, I'll be in retirement and I will be at a much lower tax bracket. Well, one, maybe he didn't look at the tax brackets very closely because most of you on this call will be at similar tax brackets. I mean, instead of a 24, you'd probably be at a 22. If you're really low income, you might pay the 15, but you're not going to be in much less tax bracket than you are already. And all of this would have been very small tax early. Think about this: you put $1,000 in 1983 in an IRA, and most you would have paid 15% tax back then. You had every deduction in the world: a house that you could deduct the mortgage, kids that you get deduction. You got every deduction in the world. If you paid any tax, I'd be surprised. But at most, let's say you paid 15%, you saved $150 in taxes. But that $1,000 for the last 40 years grew to 2,000, 4,000, 8,000, 16,000, 32,000, 64,000. Some of you are over 100,000 from that simple thousand if you left it in the market. Now, well, let's say you're at a 15% rate now. Now that's 15 grand. You saved 150 bucks, you owe 15 grand. It's a big difference. But that's not my concern now. My concern is, what do you do to mitigate this so that it doesn't cause you to do the other thing, which is cause you to pay tax on something that you were never supposed to pay tax on in the first place, your Social Security. Last one. This is the killer. 50% of your Social Security check counts as provisional income. Half of what you take home in Social Security counts as provisional income. Think about this. Let's say one of you has got 3,000 a month, one of you's got two. That's 5,000 a month. That's 60,000 a year. $30,000 of provisional income, and you haven't even said boo. $2,000 more in income, and you're paying tax on something that you shouldn't be paying tax on. All right. All right, I'm going to do a quick case study here. It's the last thing I've got. This is about taxes, so please bear with me on this. This is eye-opening. This is a very typical couple, age 64 and 62, just over 34,000 in combined annual Social Security income if they file at 62. Why do they want to file at 62? They want to retire early because they've saved in their 401ks and IRAs 752,000, $752,000 bucks. Now, some of you are going, that's a lot of money. This couple with 752,000 has a serious running out of money problem. Some of you are saying, I would never retire with that little. This couple with only 752,000 has a serious tax problem. We're going to give them 6% annual return on their investments, 3% inflation. They need $70,000 per year in inflation adjusted after tax income. And they're going to live to 86 and 89 respectively. If they file at 62, they are walking away from $186,496 in Social Security benefits if they had filed correctly. That's a lot of money. But more importantly, they need every nickel of that to make it through retirement. And they're not going to have it because they filed early, because they didn't have a plan. This is a cash flow. This is what you should see. If you've got a retirement plan, you've seen this before, you know exactly what it looks like. The blue bars are their Social Security. Those orange bars are their 401ks, their IRAs, their SEPs, their SERPs, every bit of their retirement investments. That's where, for this couple, it's their $752,000. The graded line is their income need. It's $70,000 of inflation adjusted annual income. At the end of the orange bars, that white space is that. It's just what I just said. It's white space. It's empty. It's supposed to have money in it, but they're broke 2/3 of the way through retirement. This couple with very reasonable expectations is dead broke. Now, That's disturbing, but it's remember when I said earlier the statistic about 46.1% of Americans end up literally without enough money to fund their own funeral? This couple is there two-thirds of the way through retirement. They've just gone through everything. It, look, I'm going to show you the answer to this. We've done a corrected cash flow. We've looked at this. We've done an analysis, and we can show them how to fix it. Let me show you what that looks like. Now, I haven't done anything here except change the way they file their Social Security. For this couple, it was that simple. See, they're still retiring at 62 here, but see the orange bars at first? They're not drawing their Social Security first. This orange money, they've never paid tax on that. When they pull that out, I don't care when they pull it out, they're going to pay tax. But the blue bars, they have paid tax on. They shouldn't pay tax if they don't have to. And if they come up with the right plan, they will not have to, or at least not very much. Look at this. Because they're taking their Social Security early, but that's not enough to fund it. They have to dig into those orange money anyway, the 401ks, the IRAs. But because of that, they're paying tax on both. It's a big, big deal, and it makes a huge difference. I cannot understate how important it is. So most of the people that I meet in my career professionally, I will tell you about 80% of the people I meet say, oh, we have a plan. But when I run the numbers and I show them, or I ask them for the plan, they don't have it. What they have is the promise of somebody who said he's looked at it. But if they don't, and Sorelli is a big company that does surveys on financial matters. It says that most advisors will not do tax work and will not do Social Security work. They tell you to go see your accountant if you want tax advice. Well, I've talked with hundreds and hundreds of CPAs through my career. I've never met one that did tax planning like this. Not one. And correct me if there's a CPA in the audience tonight. You tell me. If you do this kind of work, God bless you. Give me your name and number. And I'll pass it out to people when they're asking for somebody that does taxes. But I haven't met one. The problem is, once you make decisions, like I'm taking my Social Security now, it's almost impossible to fix this. It's not impossible. You can do work here. By the way, the one thing I haven't mentioned, but tons of difference in taxes. In this case, if they didn't run out of money, they would have saved over $100,000. They would have had 14 more years of longevity in their portfolio. Most importantly, they wouldn't have gone broke. All right. If you look at your statement, no cost of living, it will never project a cost of living for you. It assumes you work to one of three static ages, 62, 70, or whatever your FRA is. And maybe the most egregious thing I think of all, I've been married 49 years. My wife and I have a house together. We have cars together. We have bank accounts. We have investment accounts. We have all sorts of things. Everything is in both of our names. Our financial lives are melded together. You can imagine 49 years. Oh my gosh. What isn't something that we do together? But Social Security looks at her and I like we don't know each other, like we're two financial ships passing in the night. You need to be able to coordinate with your spouse. And maybe worst, Social Security cannot offer you advice. AARP says whether you're close to retiring or just turning 50, you should check your Social Security earnings records each year to make sure it doesn't contain errors. Those errors can be fixed. Most of them can be fixed. Some of them have statute of limitations on them, but you need to look. Every time I do one of these workshops, I offer a complimentary personal analysis, Social Security and taxes. I'm going to explain what that is, what it includes, I'm going to explain who's going to do it for you. And then, if you'll bear with me, I'll explain why we do this, what's in it for us. So it'll include break evens. No big deal, but it does that. It's easy to use and implement. It's point and click. It will look at alternatives and shortfalls. If I have a shortfall, what can I do about it, Dave? What if I don't have enough? What are my options? And then what are the alternatives? Well, I don't like this. What if we did it this way? What does that look like and how does it compare? Easy. And then what about your retirement income, your cash flow, your tax analysis? Can you save money on taxes? And how do I do that? And what do I need to do? And then what about your income plan? Are you counting on your assets to provide too much income? Are you stressing them to get what you need to be? Or are you underestimating how much you can get? Both are problems. You need to know. And then what about Roth conversion? So the one asset I didn't mention in provisional income is Roth. So should I be doing Roth, Dave? And if so, when and how much? And when should I do it? What's the plan? And darn it, tell me, what's that going to save me? What, I mean, everybody talks about it, but nobody really explains it. How can I get an explanation of that? And then how do I coordinate? So look, if you have a retirement plan or if you don't, and it doesn't include coordinating your Social Security, your taxes, your all your different retirement accounts and benefits, qualified, non-qualified, IRAs, 401ks, pensions, life insurance, TSPs, everything. And then you don't have a plan. It has to include all of those. And it has to be able to do it in the most comprehensive way. I'm going to offer you that this evening. And I'm going to do it for you completely complimentary. Now, look, to do any kind of planning, you need to get your statement. If you haven't done this already, go to www.ssa.gov. Take you about 5 minutes to set up an account if you don't already have one. If you do, simply print off the report. And then you're going to have I'm going to give you an option here to schedule an appointment with us tonight to get everything I just went over. I'm going to give you two options. I'll explain option one, and then I'll explain option two. Option one is what I just explained. It's the whole kit and caboodle. It's a comprehensive, complementary analysis. It will go through the filing strategies, the tax strategy, the retirement asset and Social Security coordination. It will have an emphasis on the taxes and retirement assets. And it will be absolutely, it will blow you away. It's comprehensive. If you've got money in things like 401ks or IRAs, or you have significant assets that could in fact affect you in terms of whether you pay taxes on Social Security, whether you're paying too much taxes, period, this is for you. But some of you don't. Some of you came here tonight and you're like, I have a timing problem. I don't have those kind of assets, Dave. Most of what I have in retirement is my Social Security. If the only thing you have in retirement is Social Security, you will not pay tax because it only counts that as half. You won't have a problem. But you have a timing issue. For that, I have designed the workbook. It covered the filing strategies. It's all covered in the workbook. It applies everything that you need to do to figure out when I should file. And it's complimentary and it's 100% our gift to you this evening. Okay, those are the two options. I'm going to ask our tech team to put in the chat the actual link. You can just press on that and go right to it. I'm going to ask them also to put in our QR code. There's the link. They'll pull up a QR code. The QR code is just, if you know how to use a QR code, hold your phone up. If you have it doesn't matter if it's an iPhone or an Android, hold the phone up to the QR code with the camera open. Don't take a picture. You'll see at the bottom of the camera, at the bottom of the picture, a a link. It's just a yellow or orange rectangle. Just touch that; it'll take you right to it. If you can't do that because you're listening on your phone, take a screenshot of the QR code and then open up the screenshot and touch that, and you'll still be able to listen and do that at the same time. Okay. I told you I would tell you who's going to do this, and then I'm going to tell you why we do it, and then I'm going to do the Q&A. Bear with me. I'm going to go a little fast here because I'm a little over. I apologize. A little long-winded. I had the flu last week, and I'm not quite myself, but I'm getting there. All right. So I've asked a very wonderful guy named Chris Brent to do the analysis, and he's cleared his schedule for you to do that. Let me tell you about Chris. Chris, after earning his degree, Chris served on the faculty of Marygrove College. He was a professor, honing but help people with their retirement, to help people with taxes, to help people with figuring out their Social Securities and their retirement programs. And so it was an easy transition from teaching to do that because that's a lot of what we do. But that transition fit really well. But maybe the most interesting thing about Chris is that he's a licensed golf pro. Chris is a licensed golf professional. He's a teaching pro, a coaching pro. And because he is a coaching pro, a PGA pro, he is skilled at teaching. In fact, I'm reminded of the Jack Nicklaus story about why the reason that good players need a teacher and a coach is because golf is something that's 99 or 90% physical. I'm sorry, 10% physical and 90% mental. It requires deep thinking. It requires, by the way, the top 200 golf players in the world, the big money, every single one of them has a teacher. But the teachers are incredible at the game of discipline and focus. They know how to hone in and make sure that you are focusing and that you're disciplined in what you're doing to the degree that is necessary to become really good at it. That applies in exactly the same. I know one of the reasons Chris is so good, that he's so well respected and loved at this, is because he is able to transfer that skill into doing exactly what we do. It applies exactly the same way. So I told you I would tell you about Chris. You're going to love him. But here's why we do this. Look, I'm a Costco guy. I love Costco. I forced my wife to go. Even we have local grocery stores here. The Costco's on the way other side of town. It would be much easier for us to go to one of the local stores. But I push her to go, and I push her often to go on Saturdays. And the reason is when you walk into that store on a Saturday, you get exactly what you're hoping. Every nook and cranny is filled with somebody cooking, frying, microwaving something. And I like to taste stuff. I like to try it before I buy it. My wife and I have a system when I'm trying something, she doesn't even look to see what it is. She just looks at me. And if I get a big smile on my face, she says, "We'll take one." And if I nudge her, she says, "Okay, we'll take two." That's why we do this, because I know many of you will be amazed at what you get. When you see Chris, when you go through and see the skills he has, by the way, I didn't even talk about his credentials. Chris is a fiduciary credentialed advisor. So he's a fiduciary just like I am. He carries a 66, just 65 and 66 are basically the same thing. But it's a fiduciary advisor license. But Chris also has a CRPC. It's from the College of Financial Planning, a, 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 a it's a retirement planning um, designation, and he has an APMA, an accredited portfolio management advisor designation. That is it's the highest level that you can get in terms of portfolio management. He knows his stuff, and he's a fiduciary. But when you see that, I think you're going to love it. I think you're going to be wowed by it. I think you're going to be blown away by it. And because of that, there's a really good chance that you're going to go, wow, maybe we should talk more. Maybe this is what I've been looking for. Look, I told you before about me and my company and how well we have done. This is how I built my company. We don't do dinner seminars. We don't do stuff. We offer these comprehensive, completely free, completely complimentary analysis because we know there's a really good chance that if one of you in this audience tonight has seen anything like we've actually done, I'll be shocked. He's that good, and you're going to be blown away by it. Look, there's one last thing, and then I'm going to do Q&A. So I'll ask our tech team to start getting the Q&A ready, so we can start. Last thing, I'm a movie buff, and there was a movie in the late '70s that goes a long way back, doesn't it? In the late '70s, called The Paper Chase, and there was an actor in it that played Professor Kingsley, named John Houseman. He was a British actor that played a professor of contract law at Harvard University, and he was snooty and he had a funny English accent. And but in the '80s, long after the movie and the series was over, he did commercials, and he did them for a company. And he had a saying at the end of the commercial, said in his deep English accent, "We get business the old-fashioned way. We earn it." That's what I'm trying to do. I think that if you see Chris and you see what he is capable of and what he does for every single client, you're going to be wowed. That's it. I think you're going to love him. That being said, I'm going to start the Q&A. Thanks for being patient with me. All right, this is from Paul, 49 years. Congratulations. Thank you. Some of those were not easy, but I tell you, she's my life. So thank you so much, Paul. Jim, does survivor benefits apply to divorced spouses? Yes, it does. So if you're a divorced person and you were married for at least 10 years, and you can prove that, and your spouse passes away, even if, let's say, you've been taking spousal benefits, which are only half of their benefit, when they pass away, you get the whole benefit, 100%. You get the whole amount, regardless of how much you were getting before, 100%. Great question, Jim. Kevin, is Roth IRA withdrawals considered provisional income? No, it's the only thing that isn't. Great question. Thank you. Kevin, is Roth conversion considered? That same question. But thanks again. No, it's not. Okay. Next question. I see. It's not the same question. My tech team just told me I'm an idiot. Are Roth conversions considered provisional income? Yeah, they are. Sorry. The answer is yes. When you take money out of a 401k or an IRA, even if it's going into the Roth, it is provisional income, and it's the last time it will ever be counted that way. Great question. All right. This is from Rosemarie. QQ wanted to confirm the divorce survivor spouse benefit. I was married, 27, divorced in 2017. My ex spouse passed away 2020. Did you say I wouldn't qualify since I wasn't married 9 months prior to his death? No. Let me just break this down for you. Were you married? It said if you were married for at least 10 years, and if I'm reading this correct, you were, then you qualify. The 9 months is if they pass away while you're still married and you are a current spouse, not a divorced spouse. Once you're married 10 years, you qualify, period. Great question. All right. This is Grace. Thank you. I have to log off now. No problem. Sorry to see you go, Grace. Glad you could be here. Uh, Bulkbury. I don't know. I'm 63 years old. I have been working for 35 years. Will this allow me to get the highest max retirement at age 67? Age 67 benefits. I'm 60 years. I've been working 35 years. Yeah, so 100%. If you've got 35 years of history, you're fine. It's not. Let me explain highest. Highest could be if you worked another year and you had a higher income that after proration than one of those other years. You had a year where you didn't make much money or something like that. That could increase your benefit. But otherwise, no, you fully qualify. Great question. Marilyn, thank you. You're welcome. Our pleasure. Um, Amal, if you file at 62, can you change your mind in the first year? Yes, you can. In fact, Amal, you can pay back the benefits that you've earned, and it's as if you never took it. Or you can simply keep the benefit you earn and stop the benefit, and then it will continue to grow, but you won't get everything because that benefit that you kept will be cut. It'll change how the calculation is, and you'll never be able to get the same full amount that you would all the way at 70 or even your full retirement age. Great question. All right, Eric, are veteran administration disability benefits provisional income? 100% yes. Great question. Audrey, if we have IRA, should we be moving them to a Roth? Yeah, that's exactly what Chris will do that for you. That's a conversation you should really have because you need a plan. You shouldn't do it. Look, one of the biggest mistakes you could make is just, oh, I better get this all in Roth before things happen. You've got to do this in the smartest way possible. You want to do it up to a certain point. You don't want to throw yourself into a 47% or a 35% tax bracket to get there if you can get there in a reasonable amount of time without doing that. So, yeah, that's part of the calculations. But yeah, you should be moving in that direction. Susan, I would like to show my husband this video, but he's out of town. Will this repeat? Yeah, so you have a link. Send him the link, and he can watch the whole thing. All right. Oh, that looks like the last question. I'm going to give you 20 seconds or so if somebody's typing so we can get the anything in if somebody's holding on, but that looks like we've gotten through them. All right. Okay. I don't see anything coming. So let me bid you a wonderful evening. I wish you the best planning. If you're meeting Chris, I know you're going to have a wonderful time, but I just encourage you Um, bring as much to that meeting as you can. We'll probably send you a list of suggested things. The link is the link that you got. Tech team Kai Bob is asking, what is the link? I'm assuming if you want to rewatch it, just use the link that you used to sign on to the workshop. Same link will work generally for the next, I don't know, till tomorrow sometime. And then we have one last one here. I'm fully retired. This is Henderson, York, Judy. I am fully retired and a Social Security call, had a Social Security call. They offered me a lump sum or higher payment, the lump sum fully taxed. Yeah, so it depends on how much it is, Judy. That lump sum is filing you backwards. So let's say they're going back 6 months and they're filing you then. What they're not telling you, and maybe they should be telling you, is that's also lowering your amount for the rest of your life. If you live past about 78 or 79, they're actually taking money out of your pocket for a good long period of time. You should really think twice about doing this. I would not recommend doing that unless you need that money. Okay. Thank you. You were great. Thanks, Paul. I'll let my wife know you said that. Thanks. I already set up a meeting. Good deal. All right. This is Kelly. Thank you very much. Excellent information. Once my husband is viewed, this on reply will be in touch. Thanks again. Thank you, Kelly. Okay. All right. So I'm going to bid you good night. Great planning. May you all have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful retirement. Bless you. Talk to you later. Thanks again for coming. Bye bye.